The Sports Renegades podcast on SportsTownChicago.com. Welcome back to the Sports Renegades here on SportsTownChicago.com. I'm Ryan Stuprich.
And I'm Ryan Risky.
We talked about the Bulls for the first segment. We're going to continue talking about the Bulls, leading off with what Dwayne Wade had to say. I think that was before last night's loss, 10-point loss to the Washington Wizards. And Dwayne Wade said that he was upset that the Bulls fans were booing. That they were booing him off the floor, booing him in the fourth quarter after, losing. I think they've lost at least three home games in a row in horrible fashion.
They beat the Pistons at home.
They ended up beating the Pistons.
Except, what about all the other losses to teams like Dallas, the Lakers, the Nuggets, Milwaukee twice, and back-to-back nights in embarrassing fashion. The Timberwolves, the Wizards. None of these teams are good, and yet they're getting blown out or blowing in a really big lead in epic proportions. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
And they're upset that people are booing?
Yeah, so I don't know. Here's what Wade said in full. He said, "I'm an honest guy. I was very disappointed our fans booed us. We're trying to figure it out. We win home games against Cleveland and San Antonio. Then we get our butts kicked against Milwaukee. I don't think we deserve to get booed. We're out here trying. I'd like to see more patience and more support from everybody. Like I said at the beginning of the year, we're not winning a championship today. We're not winning a championship tomorrow. We got stages and levels to get to where we want to get, and everyone has to understand that." So that's what he said. But still, I mean, the fans have every right to boo, especially when the product looks all discombobulated, and the product certainly doesn't look like playoff-worthy product.
No, and they look dysfunctional at times, and that comes down to Fred Hoiberg and his poor coaching.
Yeah. I mean, it's just ridiculous. And he says, "I'd like to see more patience and support from everybody." Well, we've been patient and supporting for a while now. The Bulls haven't been a relevant team really. They were in 2011 and 2012, but before that, since the Jordan era, they've done nothing, and there's been a lot of dysfunction. And of course, John Paxson has been there for most of it, overseeing all of the horriblepness.
I think he's only been there for 14 years.
Yeah. Don't you think he's overstayed his welcome a little bit with the Gar Foreman? I think they both overstayed their welcome. But, I mean, we're done with the patience. It's almost Christmas, and this team is going nowhere fast, and there's no light at the end of the tunnel, which is the problem. There's a light at the end of the tunnel for the Cubs, obviously. There's a light at the end of the tunnel for the White Sox, where you assume they'll be pretty competitive in the next few years. There's a light at the end of the tunnel even for the Bears, because at least they tore everything down and are building up to something maybe.
And you like the young talent that Ryan Pace has drafted, except right now this is about the Bulls. They have not drafted well. They're trying to rely on mid to late first-round picks to build the team around, and they don't have superstars to do that.
No, they don't. And they bring in Wade thinking that would sort of help them, but Wade hasn't been, the guy, and he's also like 36 years old. So.
And they're all, I think he's like 34, except they also assembled the 2011 All-Star team.
Yeah, exactly.
This is 2016, exactly. Gar Foreman. And I mean, right now, it's just and the frustration's boiling. People are paying good money. Bulls tickets are not cheap, especially for season ticket holders. Like these weekday games against bad opponents are for a lot of the 300 level seats. It's around $70.
Right.
They're not cheap. People are pissed off because the team is playing bad. It's not that they're losing; it's how they're losing.
Yeah, it's definitely how they're losing, where they have the game won, and then they just either stop trying or Fred Hoiberg leaves the subs in too long, which he does way too often, or he doesn't or it's like just all complete backwards.
Or playing Isaiah Cannon over 30 minutes a game, which I don't know what his fascination with that guy is.
I don't know.
And also it also goes back to against Minnesota, blowing the biggest lead in the NBA this season.
Yeah,
to a team at the time
21 points.
To a team who at the time was 6-18.
Yep, and you ended up blowing it. And to make matters worse, it was your former coach doing it to you.
And the funny thing is, there wasn't any booing in that game because I think a lot of people I think there are a lot of Bulls fans that were actually okay that they lost to Thibodeau.
I was okay with it.
Just to shove it.
It's an FU right in his face.
Just to shove it in Gar Forman and John Paxson's face. I think there were a lot of people. There are a lot of people that were a little happy that Thibodeau got his revenge because he shouldn't have been fired, and they also shouldn't have replaced him with a guy that is not. With a guy that should not be coaching in the NBA.
I don't remember what other coaches were available when they ended up going with Hoiberg, but that thing was in the works for like years.
Yeah, it's not like they interviewed anyone. They just offered Hoiberg the job. And honestly, I think Hoiberg didn't think this was what he was signing up for. I don't think Hoiberg thought this was going to happen
He
at
definitely
all.
didn't know what he was getting himself into.
He didn't know, and I feel a little bad for him because for his coaching system to work, he needs a more athletic team. Because he's got such a fast-paced offense, which at times their offense looks better than it ever did under Thibodeau.
Right.
I will not take that away. Hoiberg's system looks great at times. I mean, I don't think he's the best coach for this team or even in the NBA. He was a really good college coach. I just don't – I feel like in the games he's making the adjustments that are necessary to pull out, especially those really close games at the end.
Yeah.
And – right now, like he was being pitched that they would have one of the best backcourts in the NBA in Derrick Rose and Jimmy Butler.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that didn't happen.
No, because Rose kept getting hurt, and Butler could never excel to a better level like he's at now. It's just all confusing. So when Wade, goes on record and says, we need to have more patience and we need to whatever. The Bulls organization didn't build this team for patience. They built it. They went and got Wade. They went and got Rondo. They went and, they made Jimmy Butler, the guy that he is. And they did, a trade at the draft, to get McDermott and all this. And, they're not playing for patience. They're according to the moves that the Bulls front office has made, they're trying to compete now. So we're going to be mad every time that they lose.
They are.
Because that's what they set us up for. And if Wade can't see that, I don't know what the problem is. I don't know. I have a feeling Wade just kind of wanted to play here before he ended up retiring.
Right. Now, you kind of wonder what he thinks of the whole situation because, I mean, it's pretty obvious that Gar Forman and John Paxson have not done that great of a job. They have not been able – when Derrick Rose was the MVP, they couldn't even build a team around him. And remember, when they hired Thibodeau, they hired him knowing that his specialty was defense and that everyone was going to be required to play defense. So what did they do?
They just change their minds every 5 years.
No, they signed Carlos Boozer, who is known to not play defense at all, who did not fit Tom Thibodeau's system at all.
Right.
See, the thing is, they're not even like acquiring players that fit the coach's strengths and fit their schemes.
Right.
It's really tough on a coach when your front office is not getting you the players that you need. I mean, Hoiberg needs young, athletic, and fast guys that can move in transition. The Bulls don't have that. Gar Forman and John Paxson did not do that. They signed Rajon Rondo, who really doesn't fit anyone's system anymore. That's why he's been bouncing around teams every year.
It just seems like they're like trying to make Rondo fit, and he doesn't fit into this Bulls team at all. And it's like a puzzle that won't fit to finish it. So I don't know what they're doing.
Granted, that puzzle is missing a lot of pieces right now.
Yeah, it definitely is. And
we've got, after this year, I mean,
it's just bad.
Hoiberg's under contract for another 3 years. I expect him to be there the entire duration of his contract.
Oh, no question about it.
I expect him to be there, though. So, I mean, at this point, people wanting Hoiberg fired, which, I think they'd be better off moving in another direction. He's not being fired. In fact, I wouldn't be shocked if they gave him a contract extension after
they could.
It's over.
That's the Jerry Reinsdorf way, right? I mean, that's the Reinsdorf way, and Gar, Forman, and John Paxson have adopted it. And, look at how long they kept Vinny Del Negro around.
He was only around for 2 years.
But I mean, that's like two. First of all, he should have never been hired. But And I mean, you take a look at how long they kept Scott Skiles around, and they give him the pink slip on Christmas Eve or whatever it was. I mean, they just seem to do everything wrong. And when you look at some of the teams that have won the championship, they do everything right.
And they're not doing it in the most professional manner. Like when they fired Thibodeau, you should have fired him after the season. You don't wait until after the draft to do it.
They fired Scott Skiles incorrectly, and they definitely fired Tibbs incorrectly.
They fired Thibodeau after all the other coaching vacancies were filled.
Yeah, here. Okay, bye. Now you have to sit out a year because there's no jobs available. So it's just it's not good. And like we said, when you look at all the other sports in Chicago, there's no end in sight for this Bulls team. They're going to have to get their act together and start playing a little bit of better basketball, especially in the fourth quarter. I mean, are they still capable of doing it? I think Wade and Butler are capable of bringing this team, into the playoffs. But eventually, you're going to run into Cleveland, and you can't beat Cleveland. Nobody can beat Cleveland right now. So I don't know, what the thinking is when they went out and signed all these people when they got Rondo and Wade and Robin Lopez.
And really, the guys that need to go are Gar Forman and John Paxson.
Yeah.
I think Fred Hoiberg's offense could be fun to watch if he gets the right players for his system. I think
agree.
Jimmy Butler is a great fit for his system. Dwayne Wade could fit, except by the time they're competitive, he'll be too old to really be relied on to be like a main guy.
Yeah.
Robin Lopez is... I feel like he's been a little too inconsistent in the games. Like he starts out hot, and then he just kind of fades away.
Right. Well, and Fred Hoiberg is benching Robin Lopez.
Yeah, see, and he's playing
and he's benching
too long. Yeah,
so I don't get that.
And Taj was 8 for 8 from the field the other day.
Right. So I don't know. It just seems like they're going nowhere fast. Obviously, as we've talked about. That's about it for the Bulls. I don't think we can take much more, Ryan.
No.
So we're going to take a break. We'll come back. We'll talk some baseball, some hot stove, some... there hasn't been a whole lot of action going on in the MLB, although it looks like Edwin Encarnacion is not going to re-sign with the Blue Jays. So that'll be interesting.
I think that was obvious when they signed Kendrys Morales early in the offseason.
Yeah, so we'll talk about the Cubs and the White Sox as well, but we'll also talk about the MLB, see what's going on there. So stick around as Sports Renegades on SportsTownChicago.com. The Sports Renegades podcast on SportsTownChicago.com.